This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Boy, I curse the day Meghan Markle entered into the royal family. On the bright side, though, she is the wake-up call to make us realize all that's wrong in this world and what has been happening to us with this manipulation of the media. A huge shout out to Daily Empress, as she always has me thinking. And a couple days ago, she posted a video talking about the CCDH, or the Center for Countering Digital Hate. This is an organization that Meghan and Harry had been involved with in supporting the Stop Hate for Profit campaign. Now, I have talked about the censorship industrial complex before in various videos. If you want to see the playlist, it's called Stand Up for Free Speech. I don't care if I sound like a broken record. I'm putting this visual up again, but this time I'm adding Harry and Meghan's connections to the various organizations so it can really sink in with everyone that they are very much a part of this effort to undermine the First Amendment and abolish it with censorship. These are the connections or the organizations that Meghan and Harry have aligned themselves with in some way. So as you can see with the think tanks, we have Jory Craig, Meghan paying the six-figure salary to her to produce those reports on technology and why it's so bad and why we need guardrails. Aspen Institute, we have the Atlantic Council. I mean, I'm sure that there are more organizations like Five Rights Foundation that they've attached to. Let's not forget their involvement with the various universities, UCLA, Harvard, Stanford, all working on trying to clamp down on free speech. They think that we can't make up our own minds, in which they feel that they need to control the information that gets put in front of us. Then we have the government, as you can see, all those arrows pointing to the various agencies, including DHS. Wonder why DHS doesn't want to release his visa? You come to your own conclusion on that one. But we know who's involved from the government perspective in a leadership capacity involved with protecting these two. Then we have all the media companies that have been censoring people on social media. So we have Google, we have YouTube, we have Facebook, not so much anymore X, or formerly known as Twitter. And then we have what we're going to talk about today is the CCDH, also known as the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Here's Michael Schellenberger in a nutshell, giving a brilliant summary as to what has been discovered and unfolding this past week.
The US government and other governments around the world are hyping hate in order to weaponize the government against their political enemies. Ever since the 2019 shooting in New Zealand, governments have been using so-called hate speech, fake news, and misinformation as justifications for censorship. The Biden White House worked with one of the leading groups that hype hate, the Center for Countering Digital Hate, to demand that Facebook and other social media platforms not only censor content they didn't like, but also to remove people they didn't like, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., from their platforms altogether.
In light of this exposure, things are now starting to click. Thanks to Propaganda 73 on X, they have uncovered that there has been an entire bot farm staged to attack Princess Catherine during this time. So, what is this looking like? A coordinated campaign? Absolutely, with intent. And the intention is to make an example out of this, to say, yes, we need more regulation. We need transparency with the algorithms. And look at what happened to Catherine, a beloved figure, everybody coming out crying about how sad they are, but at the same time had been attacking her, jumping on board and feeding into all these people who had been gaslighting with intent to cause this outcome. It's not a coincidence when these campaigns begin, it's the usual suspects that jump in and are engaged with it. Take, for instance, Christopher Boozy. He hasn't been around in months. I don't know if it's because Samantha's lawsuit was going on and now he's free to get back into the game and attacking people online. But it's quite suspicious that he got involved and had a lot to say, not only online, but also in the media. We also had Smelly Hall crawl out of her hole, doing an interview about Catherine with Katie Couric, remember, Aspen Institute. Then we also had Shouty Shola out of nowhere. I mean, she says nothing about the Baka people with African parks, but she chooses to engage in race baiting and hatred online, getting people all riled up. Folks, this is all by design, by the people behind it who are trying to make a point to say, you see, we can't let you self govern and make decisions for yourself and have civil discord online. We need to suppress what you're seeing and what you're saying. And this is not accidental. And I think that because they can't do it with Meghan Markle, because people don't like her and know that she is a liar, they chose Catherine because of how universally loved she is. And Meghan is not. And I do believe the forces behind this movement for censorship recognize that. They recognize that Catherine is going to be the one that will give this desired outcome because it is a psyops on us. It totally is. And I know that sounds very conspiratorial, but it's not. I mean, what the media has been doing in manipulating what you think, what you believe, has been there since, I guess the CIA started in having to push propaganda. Anyhow, in this situation, what we witnessed was exactly that, showing the world that we can't have nice things and that they have to take control because we can't manage information coming to us. But this was all set up by design by the very same people who had been attacking Catherine, coming from Montecito. You follow me on how this all is now starting to fit together and work? These people like Boozy and whoever is running these bots, the Sussex squad, all paid to incite and to cause division as part of this psychological manipulation. This is being done on behalf of various organizations who are pushing for censorship. And these are organizations that are funded by the globalists, such as the Rockefellers, Bill and Melinda Gates, Omidyar Network. You have George Soros and Open Society. Dark money being pumped into various organizations to create these narratives in order to drive the change they want to see, which involves keeping certain political powers in place. If you're not aware, the World Economic Forum globalist parasites see that misinformation, disinformation is the number one global crisis that we have going on, right? So forget the wars, forget the threat of possible nuclear World War III, hunger, poverty, none of that. Misinformation and disinformation is the number one priority. So what are they trying to do? Wrap laws in all the Western countries to get us locked down. And this push is ongoing, but being done more so from behind the scenes now, ever since Missouri versus Biden and the Twitter files exposing how Americans' First Amendment rights were violated online as a result of government interference. This hard push to regulate speech is due to the elections that are coming up, as well as now they don't have the control anymore over formerly known as Twitter, now X, and TikTok. So, what did we see during this whole Kate chaos? It was really happening on TikTok and happening on Twitter, or at least to the point where that was what was being pulled and used as the examples. We didn't talk about Facebook. We didn't talk about Instagram. We didn't talk about YouTube. You want to know why? It's because the government still has some sort of control here in which Facebook is obliging as well as Google. A lot of this censorship is coming from the European countries. A lot of this censorship is being driven by other countries outside the United States from Western so-called democracies.
In Ireland, the government is pushing hate speech legislation that would allow police to invade homes, seize phones and computers. In Canada, Justin Trudeau is pushing legislation that would even allow the government to sentence individuals to life in prison for things they said.
So, keeping that in mind, now let's switch topics to look at the statement that Meghan and Harry put out. Now, on the surface, when you look at the statement, as many did, had stated that, oh, this is so superficial, very cold, disrespectful, that they called her Kate. I do believe that everything that Meghan and Harry do, specifically with Meghan, is strategically planned and with intent. So not only was she taking a dig at Catherine, obviously we know that she is so jealous of her, but this was also to represent that they do not respect the institution, they do not respect the family, and to create this element of disconnect. No doubt that it was Markle that wrote this. When you look at the statement itself, it's filled with contempt. Even in the first half, it says, "We wish health and healing for Kate and the family." Right off the bat, I mean, calling Catherine Kate is a dig, as well as not acknowledging her proper title. That shows that Meghan and Harry disrespect the institution, specifically Meghan. If you notice in past interviews, this woman makes it a point to call these folks by their pet names or, shortened names. She'll never address, say, His Majesty or Her Majesty or Princess of Wales, or even when Catherine was Duchess of Cambridge, she said, Kate, Kate, Kate. I mean, it's like grating now to the ears when you hear it, because we know that that's not what she wants to be called, and it really just makes it very common. And we know Meghan does this because she's petty like that. But then also to say "and the family," it's not our family or even addressing the king. I mean, think about it. They didn't even give a statement for the king. When all the shit was hitting the fan about Scobie's Endgame and Meghan contributing to the book by giving the names of the royal racists, they remained silent. But they chose now to come out and issue this hollow greeting, well wishes, what have you. Not for them. It's not for the family. This was to make a point, because in the second line, it says, "in hope they're able to do so privately and in peace." Almost to say, look, we didn't get our privacy, and we've experienced a lot of harassment online, and it has not been peaceful. Even in just that small little sentence, they made it about themselves, and it was there to prove a point. This was not about being kind or genuinely wishing Catherine well. This was to take a dig at her, but then also to dig in and say, look, there's a severe problem here online, because she is acknowledging that this woman was harassed. This woman couldn't have peace. This woman couldn't maintain her privacy. It's actually quite sadistic, because it is Meghan and Harry who were the root cause of all of this harassment and unable to have any peace. They're the ones who are the source of where all of this had started. Now, the way I see it, this wasn't for the family. This message was a message to show the political backers and handlers of Meghan and Harry that they're on their side. A side that wants to tear down tradition and everything that's good in the world in favor of instability and slavery. As part of this psychological manipulation, this is being done on behalf of various organizations who are pushing for censorship. And these are the leftist organizations that Meghan and Harry have aligned themselves with.
The Biden administration endorsed the Christchurch call to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online, which had been created by governments in 2019.
So let's go back in time and talk about this. The Christchurch mosque shootings were 2 consecutive mass shootings on 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, that happened on March 15, 2019. What was unique about this was that this was the first terror attack that was ever live streamed on a social media platform known as Facebook.
The Biden administration endorsed the Christchurch call to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online, which had been created by governments in 2019.
But in 2019, the Trump administration had passed on the International Initiative for Censorship. It reportedly released an online tool for users to report if they suspect they've been the subject of political bias by Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and other online platforms. I think it's really important to remember how vilified Donald Trump was during his presidency. Every day, there were attacks on him, not only by the US government, but also by other governments worldwide. You have to understand, Donald Trump threw a wrench in all of the plans from the globalist perspective. He didn't want to be a part of NATO. He didn't want to be a part of the WHO anymore. UN, he was, defunding some of it. All the things that at the time made him look like the Antichrist. But now when you understand all that has been going on and the wool has been pulled back from our eyes, you realize how evil these people were in what they were doing to this man.
This focus on so-called hatred, harmful content, and extremist content is extremely dangerous. What one person thinks is extreme, another person may view as common sense. For the government to decide what is extreme is a way of labeling someone as a potential terrorist threat. We saw this clearly with the Trudeau government's outrageous suppression of the Canadian trucker protests in Ottawa, in which people's bank accounts were frozen simply for supporting the anti vaccine mandate protest movement. The same could happen in the United States. There is no reliable connection between people's beliefs and violence. Attempting to stop violence by censoring speech is totalitarian and Orwellian. It effectively criminalizes speech and creates a whole new category of pre-crime, like that depicted in the dystopian film Minority Report.
So, getting back to the Center for Countering Digital Hate, what we're seeing is the CCDH is now getting highly vocal about what happened with Catherine, focusing on the algorithms, which is something that they have been championing for transparency around, meaning getting your data. Anyway, they write, it may be the case that the majority of people commenting on a conspiracy post are debunking it or saying how stupid it is. But the more people interact with the post, the higher salience it has within the algorithm. So, in other words, he's saying that information that's being shared, that is conspiracy or truth, what have you, is being recommended based off of the algorithm. Well, these people don't like that. They don't like that people are interested in certain things. They want you interested in what they want you to be interested in. So the CCDH is taking advantage of this situation. And believe me, this is all by design. The whole point of this exercise is to make the point that it's the algorithms that are feeding into causing this chaos. And this is what Megan and all these people in the censorship industrial complex are complaining about. They want to see how the algorithm recommends and, if maybe, promote others instead of, a narrative that could be opposing to whatever agenda. This happened during COVID when there were people who were hesitant about getting this vaccine or had, religious beliefs in not getting it. And they didn't want to hear any opinions or expressions surrounding that for fear that others might see it or might connect with it and then begin to start making their own decision. This is real. This is what they're complaining about. They want to be able to streamline the information and give you what they want you to see. And the thing that irks them the most is that they don't want anyone making any kind of money for sharing information that they don't agree with. So, this carefully crafted campaign that Meghan and Harry are very much a part of starts to see CCDH speaking out more about it, such as this other article from the Daily Mail, this time now targeting the algorithms of TikTok. So, as the title says, the article is about this cruel British troll who used Chinese social media platform TikTok to cash in on lurid Kate claims is unmasked at last after his hurtful claims about the Princess of Wales spread across the world. So, here is what the CCDH's Imran Ahmed had to say about this situation. Social media algorithms have massively amplified conspiracy theories about Kate. They became almost normalized in the UK in the past few weeks before her poignant video about her cancer diagnosis. Imran Ahmed, head of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, said Condren was a prime example of a new breed of conspiracy spivs who take advantage of social media algorithms to lie for profit. There's a new toxic industry empowered by platforms like TikTok that allow people to profit from hate and lies, he said. It takes dogged research by journalists to expose this sick industry. The truth is that they have victimized a young woman who is recovering from surgery. They've been victimizing her and re-victimizing her and then blaming her for not being able to counteract their sort of nuclear-grade disinformation. Lo and behold, people don't realize that the same people that have been victimizing her are the same people that are aligned with this guy, Megan. But something tells me he knows all about that. He said TikTok was not malevolent, but its negligence is empowering the worst among us. He added that by amplifying and monetizing these lies, it was undermining fundamental British values of fairness, truth, and honesty. That's rich. Mr. Ahmed also called for more transparency and accountability from social media companies, especially about how their algorithms work. Condren and TikTok split 35% of the money from each paid subscriber, with the rest going to Google or Apple. Conspiracy theories about Kate surged after a Spanish news show made up claims that Kate was in an induced coma and in great danger. Garrett Johnson, Conservative MP for Dartford, said, "I just wish people would leave the Princess of Wales alone. She has conducted herself immaculately over a difficult time for her, and people should respect that and give her some space." TikTok removed one of Condren's videos about Kate after it was alerted by the Mail. The site says it does not allow inaccurate, misleading, or false content that may cause significant harm to individuals or society. I think what people need to understand here is that this is so much more than just censorship. This is about controlling the information flow on what people can see and can consume. And this is why there's such an emphasis on getting transparency around the algorithms. They want to be able to see how information is flowing to people and if it's the right information that's flowing to people. How they get this data? Well, it's going to be going to the so-called researchers like the Rene DeRestes and Safiya Nobles to say, well, this is racist and, needs to be suppressed, or some other garbage and bullshit around climate change and, identifying people or group of people and putting them, separating them from society. Honestly, would you want, with these new laws that are being passed, given authority to these researchers like Rene DeResta and Jory Craig of the ISD, to be able to see what users are saying to one another, or being able to see the things that you're searching for, reading, and watching online? They want to make sure that the things that they want you to consume is being consumed. And when I say they, I'm talking about the deep state and these globalists. No longer is deep state considered conspiracy, it's real, even with leftist mainstream media coming out and admitting it. So smoke that in your pipe. So now coming full circle with the CCDH, it has been exposed as of last week, March 20th, that Biden administration officials, including the co-chair of the Department of Homeland Security's ill-fated Disinformation Governance Board, as well as the White House, corresponded with this Fugazi NGO, CCDH, otherwise known as the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Right off the bat, though, this organization that has opened up a branch here in Washington, D.C., should never have received this 501c3 status, because in the UK, it's not even classified as a charity. So to come over here and file for tax exempt, I think there should be some type of IRS investigation, which I believe is going on right now because the House of Representatives, Jim Jordan, had subpoenaed him. So I believe that his finances are being thoroughly investigated at this moment, which is good. So let's look at this thread of this censorship scandal that was exposed last week, in which it says here, censorship scandal exposed from America First Legal. We just unearthed evidence that Biden's DHS, the department that is holding back Harry's visa, and State Department mobilized federal counterterrorism assets to support a foreign-based organization censoring American speech, the Center for Countering Digital Hate. From the day it took power, the Biden administration mobilized the national security state to support its censorship program. On June 15, 2021, Biden's National Security Council published its first ever national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. To justify censorship, Biden's strategy asserted that internet-based communications platforms make Americans vulnerable to domestic terrorist recruitment and other harmful content. Effectively, the Biden administration turned to the national security state and its allied technology companies to censor political opponents. In Orwellian fashion, it said, all told, a better, more holistic and coordinated understanding of and information sharing on today's threat will allow a more effective and comprehensive response. That response will address not just current and imminent incarnations of the domestic terrorism threat, but also its contributing factors before they can generate still more violence in the future. As the Biden strategy explained, as part of its effort to control information, we will also build a community of critical partners, including state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, as well as foreign allies and partners, civil society, the technology sector, academia, and more. We have a foreign prince on U.S. soil who has been interfering and undermining our U.S. Constitution. What more do we need to get this man kicked out of here? These interlocking communities that can contribute information, expertise, analysis, and more, and with the right orientation and partnerships, the federal government can energize, connect, and empower those communities. Communities whose input was critical to the formulation of this strategy itself. Biden's government claimed that maximizing the federal government's understanding of domestic terrorism means supporting and making appropriate use of the analysis performed by entities outside the government. CCDH was one such entity. As I said before, CCDH is a UK based nonprofit that has been encouraging censorship online for years. It originates from and is staffed with many individuals in the United Kingdom. However, it has been incorporated in the US and registered as a 501c3 nonprofit in the United States effective December 11, 2020. CCDH describes itself as a not for profit, non governmental organization that works to stop the spread of online hate and disinformation through innovative research, public campaigns, and policy advocacy. It describes its founder and CEO, Imran Ahmed, as an authority on social and psychological malignancies on social media, such as identity based hate, extremism, disinformation, and conspiracy theories. However, Ahmed is a leftist political operative connected to the UK Labour Party, and that's true. Through his work with Stop Funding Fake News, which was later folded into CCDH, Imran Ahmed took credit for a so-called defund racism campaign associated with Black Lives Matter to force Google to remove their ads from the Federalist and Zero Hedge. So now here's where the stars collide. CCDH is best known for its March 24, 2021 report, The Disinformation Dozen: Why Platforms Must Act on 12 Leading Online Anti-Vaxxers, which branded 12 Americans, including Robert Kennedy Jr., anti-vaxxers, responsible for almost 2/3 of anti-vaccine content circulating on social media platforms, and called for them to be deplatformed. And just recently, they produced another Fugazi report talking about climate deniers on social media, targeting YouTubers. Again, here is the list that they have identified in which making suggestions to Google as well as other media platforms to get these people demonetized. Does this sound like somebody we know? No joke, this is the Christopher Boozy of the UK, equally irritating and arrogant. Honestly, the gall of this organization to tell Google who to deplatform and demonetize. So that list that you saw before, they are requesting for those folks to be demonetized. In addition, they're telling Google that they need to update their policies. So with this current policy surrounding climate change, Google says, we do not allow content that contradicts authoritative science consensus on climate change. But that's not good enough. CCDH wants you to change it to this. We do not allow content that contradicts the authoritative scientific consensus on the causes, impacts, and solutions to climate change. So hear this out. The impact. So people are going hungry or people are cold in the winter because they don't have heat. Can't really talk about that. This is what they want, banned. They don't want you to say that climate change is not working out. This new Green Deal is ineffective and causing more harm to the environment. Nope, they don't want anyone to say that. Otherwise, you are a climate denier. I'm willing to bet, just like this Aspen Institute report, it was the US taxpayer or some kind of dark money that was used to generate this garbage. Have you noticed Archwell is also into generating these so-called research reports? A lot of the information contained in these reports are widely skewed and inaccurate, as well as filled with misinformation. or disinformation, but either way has no grounds to have authority over what people can and cannot say. It's frustrating to see that my government keeps giving money to these organizations to put out these reports. So, this issue 1, Dangerous by Design, presented by Responsible Social Media, is a guide on how social media companies are hurting our kids' national security and democracy, aka socialism, and what we can do about it. So, throughout this guide, it's really telling people what can be done. And quite frankly, the area of focus is pushing policy and regulation. That's what it all boils down to. Now, here's the thing. Ever since this censorship industrial complex has been exposed, as well as the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that has now taken over the United States as a very important case, we are seeing these people now shift their tactics onto the children, in which the focus is keeping the kids safe and putting guardrails in place. Also, driving now down to the local level, which is the state, in trying to push regulation there. We see this in California, where they want to be able to control the kind of data that is going to your children. So now getting to the children naturally will get to the parents, which eventually will get to all of us. But do you see how sneaky this is? And how we know that their tactics are shifting is when you look at the people who are part of this council. You see the usual suspects, and I think red flags should be going up all over the place. Let's take a look at some of these names. Mind you, this report came out in December of 2023. Oh, look who's there. Imran Ahmed of the CCDH. Then we have 2 familiar names, Jory Craig and Renee DeResta, both names mentioned in the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit, as well as, let's not forget, Close to Meghan and Harry, in which Jory is getting a 6-figure salary. Next up, we have Meghan's bestie, and she likes to call him Tristan Harris. Also connected to Meghan, Francis from Facebook. The name Vivian Schiller, hopefully that rings a bell. She is the executive director of Aspen Digital and was a part of the Hack and Dump tabletop exercise regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story. Yep. The fact that these people supported these 2 liars invalidates anything that they put out regarding myths and disinformation, as well as bullying and targeted hate campaigns. You got to think about the people that support Meghan and Harry. Do they really care about the kids? No, they don't. This is all about gaining control and power. You've got these folks who, Vivian Schiller, for instance, was directly involved with suppressing that Hunter Biden laptop story by conducting this hack and dump or hosting this hack and dump. You got to think about how that affected this country in the outcome of our election. It's some serious stuff. So when you have people like this now preying on your children, trying to get policy put into place in order to now invade their privacy, to know what they're doing, to know what content they're consuming, it's deeply troubling, especially when you have the very same people, the people who are saying, oh, we need a more safer and kinder world online, being the ones behind the scenes causing the hate and the harassment. I mean, this situation with Catherine, started by Meghan and her crew, is a result of why we're now having this conversation around, oh, we need more data transparency with these algorithms. And all of a sudden now CCDH is coming out in full force, making the case as to why it's so important for us to regulate you now, because you proved that you can't self-regulate yourselves. And I believe that this whole thing was set up by the very same people who are advocating for this safer and kinder world online. What do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
You're such a fraud.